Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Carlos Alcaraz versus Jannik Sinner, Miami Open Semifinal 2023. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. A rematch of the Indian Wells semifinal, a reversal of the result. Sinner takes it this time in 3 sets and evens the overall head-to-head against Carlos Alcaraz in tour-level matches at least, 3-3. We are even. And before I get into the analysis of the match, which was another brilliant match, a roller coaster of a match, which brought some absolutely spectacular highlights, including what I felt was the point of the year in the first set. You know what point I'm talking about. I don't need to go any further than that, but there was plenty more where that came from. It was another brilliant Sinner-Alcaraz match, although it got pretty wacky towards the end. It was wacky in kind of how it played out. And there are so many things to get to that I need to be concise as possible in this analysis, or this is going to be a 30-minute video. But before I get into the match, I do want to talk about that head-to-head being 3-3 and how that is going to likely impact perception here about Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. And I'm not saying it is wrong to put them on the same level together. I'm not saying that's completely wrong because tennis is a mano-y-mano sport. And this is a head-to-head where when you put Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner on the court together, they look very equal. And I don't think that's any kind of coincidence. I really don't. I think that's how it is. That's how this head-to-head hopefully is going to be. And I think that's how it will be. Not to say that nobody can ever find an edge, sure. But in general, this is going to be a very, very, very competitive head-to-head. There's no doubt about that. However, from a perception standpoint, they're not the same against the field. I'm going to throw some numbers out here. And in a way, I think these numbers could be somewhat misleading because I do think that Jannik Sinner has taken a jump this year. I think he's a better player in 2023 than he ever has been. And a lot of these statistics that I'm about to rattle off represent their careers as a whole. And again, I think that Sinner is better this year. But if you're looking at them against the field, Alcaraz is 2 years younger with 1 more title. Big titles, Alcaraz 4, Sinner 0. We'll see if that changes on Sunday. Versus top 10 players, Alcaraz is 15-9. Sinner is 13-23. But it's not only against top competition that Alcaraz has a large edge in win percentage, because against everybody, total win percentage at the ATP level, Alcaraz is 7 percentage points higher, which over a sample size that large is pretty significant. And again, he's 2 years younger. So all I'm saying is that the gap between them against the field is a little bit wider than the gap in their head-to-head, because the gap in their head-to-head is non-existent. And the gap between how well they play against the field, I still think does exist in favor of Carlos Alcaraz. Just want to get that out of the way. Now let's get into this match. Straight away, I just want to say the biggest difference between this match and Indian Wells, I don't want to say the biggest difference, because maybe it wasn't the biggest difference, but it was definitely the most obvious difference. Because it was something that I could have said before the match was going to be different, and it was. Which is that Jannik Sinner was going to serve much, much, much better than he did at Indian Wells. He just had a bad serving day. A really bad one. And you knew he was going to serve better this time, and the question was it going to flip the result? And it did. Now, there were other factors, but it did. Indian Wells, first serves unreturned. Alcaraz, 41%. Sinner, 33%. Now, I said after the match that that's a stat that Sinner needs to win. Well, in Miami, he did win it. And he won it by a ton. Alcaraz, 24%. Sinner, 43%. So Sinner's unreturned percentage went up by 10 points. Alcaraz's went down by about 17. That doesn't make much sense that Alcaraz's went down, honestly, because Miami is much more server-friendly conditions. I don't really know what to make of the fact that Alcaraz went down so much on first serves unreturned, other than to say that his first serve was pretty ineffective in the second set and the third set. And that's even before there was any cramping going on, which I'll get to. All right. First serves in Indian Wells, Alcaraz 72%, Sinner 50%. Well, here in Miami, Alcaraz went way down, 55%. Sinner normalized, had an average day, 63%. Now, honestly, I almost think a similar thing can be said only for Alcaraz in this match, which is that he had a way below average serving match. 55% in, that's pretty subpar, and it wasn't really doing much damage either. So it's not like he was getting the reward when it was landing in the court. I guess for Alcaraz, it's a little bit more typical for him because the level of his first serve, while sometimes actually really, really good, it does tend to fluctuate. But a huge difference. I felt Sinner kind of normalized, Alcaraz kind of plummeted. So first serve performance, let's get that out of the way. It was very different in this match. But it was Sinner's second serve strategy that I think was also pretty significant because he also was able to make a reversal in his second serve points won percentage, which I think correlated with a change in second serve direction. It kind of went back to what he was doing very often at Wimbledon and Umag. And I don't know if he got away from it or if Alcaraz just started to get a read on it. But once again, it kind of felt like Sinner was able to hit second serves hard into Alcaraz's forehand. And as a result, he wasn't really getting buried into his backhand corner. What kept happening to Sinner at Indian Wells and at the U.S. Open in the previous two matches before this, which Alcaraz won both of them, is Alcaraz was rushing Sinner into his backhand corner off of the second return. And a lot of those were backhand returns. Alcaraz backhand returns, and the easier return on the deuce side, inside in. On the ad side, cross court. Those are the easier directions to hit. And in this match, Sinner said, well, I'm going to serve it into your forehand instead. On the deuce side, you're not going to be able to change direction down the line. That's too tough a shot. So you're going to have to go cross or middle, and I'm going to get a forehand instead of a backhand. On the ad side, it's going to be the same thing. You're not going to be able to take it inside out. That requires very precise timing. Very tough to do that. Much easier for you to go middle or inside in. Well, guess what? That's out my forehand. So because Sinner served at the Alcaraz forehand on his second serve, he produced himself better opportunities to hit his first ball forehand, which put him in better position in these second serve points. So he won 55%. In the last two matches, he was under 50% on second serve points won. Now, you have to do that with speed, because if you hit it into the Alcaraz forehand hip, if you try to hit body serves in general and it's slow, it's not going to work. It's really, really not going to work. Sinner averaged 101 miles per hour for the match. The broadcast showed a stat during the first set, which showed that he was up 8 miles per hour on average from his previous matches. So Sinner had to hit the second serve bigger than he's used to, and he did. Good second serve strategy by Sinner. Physical stuff was a big factor in this match. This was another U.S. Open reversal, as I thought that Alcaraz had more legs in the fifth set of their U.S. Open quarterfinal than Sinner did. And while Jannik was first to have a slight moment at the beginning of the second set where he was stretching out his legs and his movement went a little bit off briefly, that turned out to be a blip in the radar. And it turned out that Alcaraz had a lot of issues in this match on the physical side. The first one came when he lunged for a Jannik Sinner serve and kind of fell over and caught himself on his left hand and ended up hurting his left hand because he hit it against the court, catching his fall. He ended up, for a couple of games, slicing all of his backhands after that, almost all of them. And then from there on, he started hitting over his backhand again, but it seemed like he couldn't hit it very hard. I don't know that his backhand was ever the same. Certainly was never the same for the remainder of the second set. Definitely not. Physio came out. Not sure what the physio was actually able to do. I don't think they were able to do much, to be completely honest. There has been some talk about Alcaraz being a little bit reckless with his body, and maybe that being something that he should change. And if you are someone who believes that, this is a good argument here. You know, Alcaraz kind of hurt himself, and it was somewhat avoidable. Now, if I am his coach, I'm pretty hesitant to try to change that because I think that's deeply ingrained in how Alcaraz competes. It's a matter of effort level. It's 100%, 110%, dare I say, effort at all times, and that is part of it. And I would have trouble changing that because I think changing that might alter the brain chemistry, and I'd be careful. That's just me. If you disagree, I respect your opinion because there's a good argument that Alcaraz should not be doing that kind of thing and that he should be careful. But I don't know. There's a give and take there. Nonetheless, he hurt his left hand. That affected his backhand. Beginning of the third set, he started cramping. There were a couple of games there where it looked like he wasn't going to be able to really make a competitive effort in the match whatsoever. He ended up recovering to an extent. I felt that his movement got to, I would say 85%, which isn't that bad. Alcaraz can still play at a high level at 85% movement. Of course, we're talking about a match where the margins are extremely slim and Alcaraz needs to be 100% in order to actually win. And he wasn't here. Takeaways from that, what do I make of that? This was pretty abnormal. Like, I am surprised. I am still surprised that Alcaraz had physical issues in this match. I'm not going to go over all of the Iron Man stuff that Alcaraz did last year, but the list is extensive. And the headliner is what he was able to do at the U.S. Open, where it really seemed like no matter what he is asked to do, he will never get tired. I don't know what happened here because, look, it was humid. It's hot. It's the Sunshine Double. That's exhausting. It's week 4 now for Alcaraz. The intensity of the match was ratcheted up to a 10 out of 10 for 2 sets. It was close. It was intense. The points were physical. There was scoreboard pressure. Like, all of these things are very difficult. With that being said, it's not normal for Alcaraz in a best of 3 set match especially to cramp. A lot happens with tennis players that we do not see. That's all I will say. A lot happens off the court that we don't find out about. Stuff with when they eat, how they sleep, how they manage their recovery, stuff that happens in their personal life. I'm just saying a lot of stuff happens that affects them. And this was one of those cases where, and we'll never know, where I wonder if something was a little bit off. I wonder if a mistake was made with Alcaraz, if the preparation wasn't completely right, because I have seen Alcaraz time and time again do these kinds of things without physically tiring, and in this match he wasn't able to do it. I do want to give credit to Jannik Sinner because he was dynamite physically in this match, and he worked very, very hard in the offseason to be able to do that. That was the main focus. By all accounts, the main focus of his offseason was the physical side, and it showed in a match like this. That's when it shows. That's when that hard work pays off. I also want to talk about Sinner's power and how much of a problem it poses in this matchup. This is a quick court, and Sinner hits with a lot of pace, relentless pace. Forehand, backhand, there's no reprieve. He takes a good amount of time away as well. He's not someone who needs, a lot of time to generate that pace. He can stay pretty close to the baseline and still find a lot of pace with quick, compact stroke production. He's got unbelievable technique that gives him the ability to do that. And when you combine that with depth, which is also pretty exceptional on a consistent basis with Sinner, it's really tough for a player in Alcaraz who does need time to do what he wants. Alcaraz looked routinely rushed in this match. And in a way, that's kind of a universal language in tennis. You want to rush your opponent. In a way, this has nothing to do with the head-to-head, and it's just what makes Jannik Sinner good. What makes Jannik Sinner, I'll use a bigger word, great, is that he hits the ball really hard, and he does it over and over again. And he hits the ball fast, and when you're playing Jannik Sinner, the ball is coming quickly. You don't have a lot of time. The ball's deep, the ball's fast, he's taking time away, I'm rushed. And it doesn't matter if he's playing Alcaraz or, It doesn't matter if he's playing Alcaraz or anybody else. That's a factor. But I think for Alcaraz in particular, compared to Medvedev or Djokovic or Zverev, that's a big deal. That's a bigger deal against Alcaraz because at the end of the day, Alcaraz does want to be in control. He wants to be on his front foot. He wants to attack. And he does need some time to produce his strokes. And I think because he wants to be in control and he's desperate to kind of create some time and create a ball to attack, I feel like there's an intimidation factor with Sinner's power. I think that Alcaraz gets a little bit intimidated by Sinner's power, and it comes out in certain ways. Alcaraz, I thought, was going a little bit bigger on first serve returns. I think he missed some first serve returns, especially on the forehand side, where he's taken a big cut. And I'm looking at that and I'm going, ooh, that's quite aggressive there, Carlitos. Why so aggressive? Why so aggressive? Because Sinner delivers the boom on the +1 if you're not aggressive on your return. And Alcaraz didn't want that. He wanted some control. He was struggling to have control because of Sinner's pace. I've been watching Alcaraz all week. Every single match I've watched him, except against Magnus. I missed that one. Every other match I've watched. He has not been overhitting on a lot of forehands. It's what has impressed me so much about his play. He overhit on more forehands in this match than I've seen all week. To me, that's credit to Jannik. You got to credit Jannik here. Maybe the physical stuff came into play at a certain point in the match, but I feel like that's the intimidation factor. And the biggest thing, the biggest one of all, is how big Alcaraz was going on second serves. Career high 9 double faults for Alcaraz because Jannik was absolutely obliterating his second return. Alcaraz couldn't even get away with a slightly above average second serve. That wasn't even good enough. That wasn't. Slightly above average? Pfft, crushed. Only exceptional second serves were good enough to escape the wrath of Sinner's aggressive returning. If there is one thing that impressed me most about Jannik's performance in this match, it was probably his returning. We've seen this a couple of times in this head-to-head. There are some occasions where it feels like Sinner's return kind of clobbers Alcaraz's serve. And Sinner was playing very fast on the return. Great depth, great speed, taking it early. Carlitos has no time on the +1. And Sinner is forcing a lot of +1 errors, actually, because Alcaraz has so little time. And that kind of concludes the things that I think Sinner did well. That's the full list there, right? So I loved his second serve strategy. He improved his first serve from Indian Wells. He got the better of the physical battle. And what he does against all opponents is very effective against Alcaraz, which is hit the ball hard. Hit the ball hard. That's it. It's effective. It matters in this head-to-head. Now I want to talk about the match more chronologically and, talk about, I guess, the ebb and flow of the match, because listening to my analysis, if you didn't watch the match and you're only listening to my analysis, it kind of sounds like Sinner had this clear advantage and that he kind of rode it off to victory, but the match was much more complicated than that. Alcaraz won the first set. First of all, Alcaraz won the first set. Went to a tie break. Sinner was up a mini break in the tie break. He missed a drop shot really badly. He had an attackable +1 forehand, and he hit a drop shot that didn't even reach the net. Alcaraz had this unbelievable scramble at 4-all. Defensive lob, reset the point into a Sinner forehand on forced error. I can't believe how good. It was one of the as good a defensive lob as you will ever see by Alcaraz. And most players wouldn't have gotten to it. Then Alcaraz hit one of the best second serves, maybe the best second serve of the match. Actually kicked it up so high that Sinner missed the return. That was rare in this match. That didn't happen very often. And then he hit an ace on set point. So there it is. 4 points in a row for Alcaraz, end of the first set tiebreak. That's how Alcaraz took the first set. But overall, I felt the biggest issue for Sinner in the first set was that he was not clinical enough on attack. And I thought that did continue into the second set. But look, it was a close set, and the margins were very small, but I do feel like Sinner lost too many points from attacking positions. Alcaraz's defense was a factor, making him play the extra ball. Really, Sinner should have ran away with it because he got off to a hot start. He was up 15-30 at 1-4, threatening a mini break, and he missed an overhead. Should have been 15-40. Double break point for Sinner to go up 5-1. Missed an overhead. On the break point, it was 30-40. He had a chance to save that break point. Alcaraz hit a good passing shot, but Sinner had a half volley. He had a half volley that he could have made, didn't make it. He was up a mini break in that tie break. He had an attackable +1 forehand. Hit that bad drop shot. So I thought he left too many, just a few, but remember the margins are small here, too many points on the table because he wasn't clinical enough in attack. By the way, we can go to the second set. He's serving at 3-4. He's up 30-15. He has an approach shot. Hits an awful one. Way too central. Easy backhand passing shot for Alcaraz. And then Alcaraz would end up having break point in this 3-4 game. Now I'm going to continue chronological. All right. Alcaraz has a break point here. He actually had two. Sinner made a good first serve on the first one. Saved it with an unreturnable. Add out 3-4. If Alcaraz converts this break point, he serves for the match. And Alcaraz does a really weird thing where he hits a forehand cross court. I think it was a forehand cross court. It might have been a backhand line, but I'm pretty sure it was a forehand cross court. And for some reason, he rushes in. Not to the net, but up onto the baseline. As if Sinner is about to surrender a short ball. That was Alcaraz's recognition here. But Sinner wasn't in huge trouble. And he hits a hard running forehand cross court. Alcaraz ends up rushing himself on this next forehand. And not only was he way over aggressive on his court positioning by running in up on the baseline for no reason, but he was way over aggressive on the forehand cross court, and he hit an unforced error, and he wasn't particularly close. And it was like, whoa, that was weird. He way overplayed on that break point. And it is no exaggeration to say from that break point on in the second set, Alcaraz was horrendous. He was terrible. He made 4 forehand unforced errors on the next 6 points. He double faulted on one of those 6 points. And on the other, 6 of 6, he hit a premature drop shot early in a point that wasn't good enough. It didn't even come close to putting Sinner in trouble. All right. So I don't know what happened here. This was from 4-all. And by the way, that double fault, he had an 126 mile per hour. I think it was 127 on 127 mile per hour second serve, which I've never seen Alcaraz do in my life. So I don't know what happened. Was he starting to feel the physical thing? Were his legs going? Did he feel that? And then he started kind of getting overly aggressive on the forehand and the second serve. Was it Sinner's power? Was it the scoreboard? Was it nerves? I don't know. But this is what turned the match. So as much as all of the things that Sinner did great, Alcaraz did almost win this match until he completely went off the rails from 3-4 out in the second set. He was 5 points away from winning the match, and he went totally off the rails. Sinner would end up winning the third set 6-4, the second set 6-4, and then it wasn't too long before the cramps started bothering Alcaraz right away in the third set. Alcaraz looked very tired in the third set very, very quickly. And then he went down the break in the third set, somewhat recovered, but couldn't recover all the way and couldn't recover the break of serve that he had already surrendered. So that's kind of how the match went down. And that just about does it. All right. Wow. 27 minutes. I told you this was a complex match and there was so much going on. Congratulations if you stayed for the whole thing. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.